Good afternoon. We appeared in open court earlier today to talk about with the court the recent competency evaluation that came back in the case of the King Soopers shooter. In the second court-ordered competency evaluation, the doctor, who's a widely respected expert, found the shooter to be incompetent to stand trial, which means at this point in time, he's incompetent to stand trial. This is actually the third evaluation that he's had. He was evaluated by a defense expert, then he was evaluated by two doctors from the state hospital, and then he was most recently evaluated by a doctor who we helped select, who the prosecutors helped select. All four of those doctors, over the past 3 months, have determined that he's incompetent to stand trial currently. So we have determined that the best course of action is to have him sent to the state hospital in Pueblo, where he can be medicated and treated and brought back to restoration so that he can stand trial and face full responsibility for the charges. In other words, he's going to be sent to the state hospital in Pueblo within the next 7 days. He can be medicated and treated there. Once he's restored to competency, he'll be sent back to Boulder County so we can move forward with the case and ensure that justice is done.
Are you confident with this diagnosis, Mr. Dougherty?
Am I confident in the diagnosis?
Yeah, do you feel this is a correct diagnosis?
I will say with all four doctors reaching the same conclusion, and in particular this most recent evaluation being an incredibly thorough and detailed report, that I believe the best course of action at this time, in order to ensure justice is done, is to have him sent to the state hospital as quickly as possible and restored to competency so we can get him back here and move forward with the case.
What can you tell us about the diagnosis in terms of why he's mentally incompetent? Is there any detail that you can add there, sir?
The reports are incredibly detailed. They're shared with the defense, the court, and with the prosecution. I can tell you that in all of those reports, they reach the same conclusion that he's currently incompetent to stand trial. Other than that, I can't disclose the substance of the reports.
You mentioned that he was going to go to Pueblo for a certain amount of time. Walk me through once again what happens there. Will he stay there until he's capable of standing trial? If you could please go over that, please.
So by statute, he has to be sent to the state hospital in Pueblo within 7 days. Once he arrives in Pueblo, he'll be held in a secure, locked facility. It's the state hospital. And that hospital is the one used for every case in the state where someone has been determined to be incompetent. He'll be treated there by the doctors, he'll be medicated by the doctors, which is particularly important. And once he's restored to competency, he'll be sent back. In the meantime, the judge has agreed to our request that the state hospital update us every 30 days on his progress. What that means is every 30 days we'll get an update sent to us to see where they're at with the competency restoration. And then at approximately 91 days, and I say 91 because that's the number required by statute, he'll be brought back to Boulder County for an appearance in front of the court for an update on his competency. So the court set the next date as March 15th at 3 o'clock. So we'll have updates every 30 days and then be back in court March 15th.
Can you tell us if he is on any medications now or receiving any kind of treatment?
I can tell you that I'm glad he's going to Pueblo because that's where he's going to get the treatment he needs to get back here so we can move forward with the case as quickly as possible.
Sir, there have been other cases where people have been declared mentally incompetent in Colorado and they've not gone to trial yet. Are you confident that he will get better and be able to stand trial at some point?
That's a great question. And based on the latest evaluation from the doctor, I'm confident that he'll be restored to competency, yes. That through medication and treatment, as I talked about in court earlier, that he'll be returned to competency and able to face responsibility for the crimes he committed on March 22nd.
Have you had a chance to talk to any of the victims' families to tell them what has happened? What are some of the things they're asking you, and what do you tell them at a time like this?
It is an honor. It is truly an honor to fight for justice for the victims and to stand alongside their families through this process. So we try to maintain close communication and provide as much support as we can for the victims. And for the victims in the community, I want to remind folks that the Boulder Strong Resource Center is available to anyone who needs counseling or any kind of treatment and support whatsoever. So we met with the victims' families yesterday in my office and talked to them in advance of today's court hearing so they'd have an idea of what was going to take place. And we had a long discussion about it. And a lot of them came back today to attend the court hearing, and we met in my office again after the court hearing. So to answer your question, it should come as no surprise that they're frustrated and upset by any delay. I mean, think about it if you were in their shoes. They want me to be standing in front of a jury right now delivering a closing argument. I want that as well. That day will come. But today he's going to be sent to the state hospital in Pueblo so he can be restored to competency so we can continue to pursue the case and move forward.
There are some people who are skeptical of diagnosis when it comes to mental incompetency in standing trial. They say, oh, of course, they're going to make it look like they're not capable of doing this. How do you respond to some of those critics who are skeptical in that regard?
Well, I certainly understand if members of the public are skeptical when someone claims to have mental health issues, and that's why I look to the doctor's reports and the experts who've met with the individual in this case, and we look very closely at those, and these are doctors who are trained to recognize when someone's malingering or faking a mental illness. So doctors are very well equipped and very experienced in dealing with people who might be feigning some symptoms, and I have faith and trust that the doctors have looked very closely at this individual, and each doctor determining that he's currently incompetent to stand trial.
You mentioned that there will be another hearing in March of next year. Is there any chance a hearing could take place? I know you'll be talking to them every 30 days, but is there a chance that a hearing could take place before then?
Yes, and that's a great question. So under the law, if he's restored to competency earlier, the court could move up that court date, yes.
Anything else you want to add before I let you go, sir?
I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Well, two things. First, I just want to emphasize that this is certainly a delay in the case, but this case is not over. Competency is different than insanity or a mental health defect. So we're not talking about what he did on March 22nd. We're talking about whether he's competent to stand trial right now, and that's a separate legal approach. So I really want to emphasize that so people in the public understand that this case by no means is over. This is certainly a delay, and it's upsetting to everybody in the victims groups, the families, the prosecution, but it's also a step we need to take to get him back here as quickly as possible so we can move forward and ensure that justice is done. We are here to fight for the victims. We're going to continue doing that, and I'm 100% confident that the day will come that he's held fully responsible for what he did on March 22nd. And as I do every time I meet with the media, I have to emphasize he's innocent unless and until proven guilty, and the charges are merely an allegation until we prove them beyond a reasonable doubt in court.
Thank you for bringing up the insanity issue there. Can you explain to us what the difference is between the two, sir?
Sure. So generally speaking, when an individual is charged with a crime, they can pursue a mental health defense where they argue that on the day of the event, the incident, that the crimes they committed perhaps were caused by some kind of mental health disorder, such as insanity. That's not the stage we're at in this case. What we're talking about here is competency. Competency is whether he has a rational understanding of the proceedings so that he can communicate with his attorneys and help in his defense. And currently, the doctors have determined that he's deteriorated while at the Boulder County Jail, and he needs medical treatment, both medicine being provided and treatment being provided to restore him to competency so he can be coming back to Boulder County and stand trial for what he did on March 22nd.
Can someone fake mental incompetency? I know that sounds like a weird question, but can you fake something like that?
Certainly someone could try to fake that they're, certainly someone could try to fake that they have a mental illness or that they're incompetent, but as I said earlier, these doctors look out for that kind of thing. They're very well trained and experienced in looking for individuals who might be what we call malingering or faking a mental illness. Based on the thorough nature, particularly of this last report, the doctor that we helped select, she looked very closely to make sure that it's in fact what's not happening here. So I am confident that when she reached the determination that she did, that he's currently incompetent to stand trial, that she did so with that in mind.
Who initially asked for the mental incompetence hearing or discussion?
So as you may recall, the defense had asked in open court a couple months ago that the defendant be evaluated for competency.
Chris, you have any questions? Okay. If you would say your first and last name, I should have got that at the beginning of the
Sure.
And spell both, please, for everybody
Sure.
who's watching.
My name is Michael Dougherty. The last name is spelled Dougherty.
Okay. Thank you, District Attorney. Appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks for being here. Thank you.